The Heroes of Olympus is over, and I don't know what to do with myself. So today I am doing a discussion video on the Blood of Olympus by Riordan. So if you haven't read this series or this book, I would leave because this is going to start with spoilers. I guess the only thing I'll say that is spoiler free is that this book was amazing. I loved it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. So let the spoiler talk begin. So the first thing that I'm going to begin with is I'm going to address the big elephant in the room concerning this book, and that is the lack of Percy and Annabeth chapters. I went into this book incredibly disappointed knowing that these chapters are missing throughout the entire book, and it wasn't until I had a lengthy discussion with Emmanuel and really thought back about these chapters that are missing that I came to understand the importance and necessity of them being not in this book. So the one thing that these lack of chapters allow is more focus on the other characters. In the previous books, as you'll know, Percy and Annabeth both had chapters which were amazing. We loved it, especially in House of Hades where half the story was devoted to Percy and Annabeth. And that was fantastic. Same with Mark of Athena, a big portion of it was Annabeth's solo quest. So with those taking up a majority of the pretty much screen time for the other characters, we don't have a real connection to the other characters like we do Annabeth and Percy. It's there, but it's not as profound as we have with Annabeth and Percy. So with their chapters missing from here, it really gives Riordan more time to spend on these characters to develop them further, etc. While also introducing new characters with the new perspectives of Nico and Reyna, which I will touch upon in a little bit. What these lack of chapters also signifies is a change, a shift in the way Annabeth and Percy's character has developed. Now, it wasn't until I talked to Emmanuel that I really realized how much of an impact the experience in Tartarus had on Percy and Annabeth's character development, and it wasn't a good impact. Tartarus really broke them as characters, and you can see that in their decisions that they make near the beginning of this book. There are two scenes with, I think it's Annabeth and Piper, and Percy and Jason that sort of mirror each other. And the scenes I'm talking about is when Annabeth and Piper go down that well and they're in the Temple of Fear and Panic, I think it is. I'm not really sure. Annabeth is at a loss for what to do. She is almost completely useless in that quest, and Piper has to guide her along. And we see this shift in her character where she is not as strong and knowing as she usually is, and that was really difficult for me as a reader to see because in the previous books she's always been a strong, logical character, so seeing that shift was hard. And then a mirror image of that is when Percy and Jason are, at the bottom of the sea fighting Kim, and Percy kind of purposely goes into that poison. And that, once again, shows you another shift in his character development, that Tartarus really affected him, and he's not as strong as he used to be because of Tartarus. So having their lack of chapters really reflects how different they are as characters. They're not as strong as they used to be, which near the end of the book, they've obviously regained their strength and etc. But through the 3/4 of this book, they are not who they used to be in the previous books. So if their chapters were there, hypothetically, I think they would be really different from what we're used to seeing, and I think that would be worse than actually not having their chapters. Reyna and Nico, I love their chapters. As soon as Nico and Reyna were introduced as characters in the previous books, I love them. I immediately attached to them and wanted more from them. So it was great to have their perspectives. And I like that we had both of their perspectives because we really got a sense of who they are as characters because they hold intricate and important roles for this quest. I loved getting inside of Nico's head because you realize he's not as closed off and, like antisocial almost as he wants to be. He doesn't want to be like that, but it just always happens. It's sort of like a default mode for him, and it's great to see that that's not what he actually wants. And it was also great, it was a great choice, I think, on Riordan's behalf to incorporate Nico's feelings for Percy and later on his feelings for Will, which were amazing, and I liked how subtle but not it was obvious, but it wasn't like blatantly obvious where it's pounding on you on the head that they have something beginning there. And it was, I thought that was beautifully done. Amazing. And Reina is such an amazing character, and from her chapters in here, you see how much she develops as a character, and she is strong and she can hold her own no matter what. So I love those chapters, and I thought they are very important to the character's development as well as the plot. I guess my favorite scene from Nico's perspective is when he pulls up that zombie race car driver as his chauffeur because they don't know how to drive. I thought that was so funny and amazing. I couldn't stop laughing. That is such a great moment of comedy in such a heavy situation. With this book comes a lot of scenes that showcase our heroes' limits. And from the other books, we don't really see that the heroes have any limits. They sort of always truck on, other than being tired from using their power so much, but they don't really have any other limits. And this book brings a whole stack of them. So these limits sort of begin in House of Hades when we see Percy starting to drown. I can't remember her name, that woman in poison, and Annabeth sort of has to pull her back, and that has a really tremendous effect on Percy later on, as we can see him walking into the poison purposely, and he kind of thinks it's almost retribution for what he almost did. Beginning of the book, we see Jason after he got stabbed with the Imperial Gold Blade, and him almost wanting to give up, and I think it's Hazel, I can't remember, I think it's Hazel, who has to bring him back, sort of coax him through it, and he admits later on that he did want to give up, so you see him another push to his limit kind of moment. And then we see Nico when he turns Bryce into a ghost, and that was a very intense and scary moment, not only for the reader but for the characters involved. Nico has always had a darker side, and we've always known that because he is a child of Hades, but we haven't really seen the extent of his power, and that showcases it to its fullest extent, and it is a very scary scene. Nico didn't really, it seemed like Nico didn't really have control of what was happening, and that is, I guess, one of the scariest parts of that scene, is that Nico sort of lost control, and that's what happens when he loses control. He can turn people into ghosts. So this book definitely showcases the darker side of these characters. You know, they are struggling with this heavy weight on their shoulder to saving the world and saving the gods and saving themselves. So these darker sides that are coming out really reflect this weight they have on them. I absolutely loved the ending of this book. I do wish Percy and Annabeth had a bigger role in the finale, but of course this book isn't about them, so that's just my selfish need for wanting them to be in every scene and every moment of this book. But I definitely liked the combo of Leo, Jason, and Piper. As annoying as Piper can be, I think that she was a very important part of this finale. Of course, using her charm speak, and we've seen that develop further and further in the books to the point where she is controlling a primordial god. So, despite how annoying Piper can be, she's a very strong character, and she knows her limits and her strengths. Jason, with him carrying Piper and creating like this tornado, keeping Gaia locked in, was fantastic and just showcases his strength as well. And then we have Leo, who is sort of like the underdog of the story, who we don't really associate him with strength, we associate him with mental strength rather than physical. So to see him on top of Faustus, lobbing fire, and his incredible plan was amazing. And in this edition of the book, there is an illustration from the ending of the books, with Leo riding Faustus, presumably either at the end after Gaia is defeated, or going to Calypso, which was another fantastic moment. The only thing that I do wish this book had was a little bit more detail into the future of these characters. We sort of have Leo and Calypso flying off, not really knowing where they're going. We have, you know, Percy and Annabeth telling us that they're going to go to school in New Rome and live there for a bit, which is fantastic, and all these other characters were getting hints at what they're going to do after this book is over. I just wish we had a little bit more, because I wasn't ready to leave this world, and still am not ready to leave this world. So I'm holding out hope that Riordan writes some sort of novella or something of these characters in, you know, the university college age, and just sort of an update on what they're doing. Overall, I thought this was a brilliant and fantastic finale. I know that a lot of people did not like Reina and Nico's chapter, as well as the lack of Annabeth and Percy's chapter, so let me know down below what you thought if you've read this. Thanks for watching.